Welcome to the Put On Waivers Media Group, home of the Put On Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
And welcome, everybody, to another glorious episode of the Put On Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Ryan Holmes, and we are podcasting off the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California. PORSBR is my Twitter handle, and Ryan Holmes is RHOLM22. And we have a special guest on our show today, Vic Tafur of The Athletic. Vic, how you doing today?
Doing good, guys. How you doing?
Good. I'll start with a couple questions, and Ryan we'll go back and forth. But I think when I look at these teams, and this is like the 28th rebuild, I think, for the Raiders since I've been watching them growing up. Do you think when these guys take over teams and they just automatically just go into like this mode of, hey, I'm gonna go get wait till I get my guys, it's very dangerous? Because it seems like that's what, this is for McDaniels and Ziegler. They had their, they by the time they get their guys, he might be 20, 30 games under 500. Like you're seeing like, Brian Dable, Mike McDaniel, people like that are just winning or trying to win immediately. Do you think they're falling into a little bit of a trap trying to wait for kind of their guys, especially how much money they spent in the offseason?
Yeah, I think that you take a shot. So you bring in Adams, you bring in Chandler Jones. You think the offense can kind of carry the suspect defense, and you take a shot and it might click. When it doesn't click, like every new coach, every new regime always has a backup. They always have you got a scapegoat in place. You got what's the reason why we're not winning? Something you give the owner, kind of buy yourself some more time. And so we're seeing that now. Clearly, they're saying the roster wasn't good enough. There are too many holes. You hear a lot of references to the bad draft picks of the last regime, which is fair. The last regime did a terrible job in the draft. And so all of a sudden now you got to buy yourself some time with the owner, which he gave him a big endorsement this past week. So I guess they're in good shape.
Yeah. Mark Davis here. Do you feel like it feels like he kind of, when on these searches, has like a guy he kind of keys in on and ends up hiring, whether it was Dario, Gruden, and now Josh McDaniels? Like the search isn't really like a search. He might do the search because the league requires, but he knows who he's going to hire and kind of fixates on that guy.
I think maybe in the past, definitely with Dario, I think he kind of locked in on him pretty early. He's hired the last three coaches. And John Gruden, he stalked him for like a couple of years. So, but in this case, I think he tried to have a more of a thorough search process. Ken Herrick, his old friend, kind of handled the questioning, the interviews, and they had a bunch of guys come in. I just think at some point he got infatuated with the whole Patriots thing, all the rings, and he wants to have that here. So I think he likes Ziegler, and Ziegler is McDaniel's guy, so they kind of were a package deal. So I think in this case he tried to vet it out a little better than he had in the past, but these are the guys he picked.
Yeah, Vic, I wanted to ask you about McDaniels and Carr and kind of the fit. Do you see them both staying after this year? Is there a path where they're both going to be with the Raiders, or do you think one has to go?
I think I said on my podcast the other day that one has to go. I'll hedge a little bit. I think they got 8 games left. So if they start clicking and the offense starts looking like what it should have, and maybe you get Renfro or Waller back at some point, then maybe you can kind of get some momentum going, and then maybe they are both back. But if that doesn't happen, if they lose a bunch more games, the offense is still kind of up and down and not really very good. I can't imagine. I don't see how they both are back next year. I just think if you're Josh McDaniels at that point, you're going to need some more rope. You're going to need like a longer plan. I think that you'll have a high draft pick, could be a top 5 or probably in the draft at that point. And you can get a quarterback, get a guy who you can kind of say, this is my guy. I'm going to need some time, but this is the guy we're going to win with. And so for me, it's hard to sell McDaniels and Carr next year if they're 4-13 or 5-12. I just think you're going to need more progress than that to kind of warrant both those guys coming back next year.
I definitely agree with you. And then obviously that would lead me into, is there a market for Derek Carr? Because he has that no trade clause. Do you think they would pick up that money knowing he'll be on the books for over $40 million and then try to move him? Or is there actually a scenario where they would release him with no compensation in that 3-day window?
No, I mean that 3-day window is weird. I think there is a market for him. I think if you look at the around the league, there's not a lot of great quarterbacks. I think I've always thought Carr's in that 12 to 14 range. I still think he is maybe 15. He's still in that group where he's in the upper half of quarterbacks. A lot of teams probably would look at it and like, you know what, this guy can get us over the hump. I mean, if you're rebuilding, if you're a bad team, you don't want Derek Carr. He's 31, I think, and so he's not really your guy. But if you're a team that's kind of, you think you're close to getting over the hump and maybe he can help you get there, I think you got to do it. Like, if you're like, I'm trying to think of teams that like maybe the Colts, maybe the Saints. I mean, top of my head, just teams that are kind of have some talent in place and maybe think they are closer than others think they are to being a playoff team.
Yeah, I would throw the Commanders in there. I don't know what his relationship is like with Jack Del Rio, but I can see that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a bunch of teams.
Spot.
I mean, there aren't that many teams I think who have clear-cut guys who have guys that definitely know are going to be their guys for the next five years and have to look out. There's a lot of teams that need quarterbacks.
Yeah, definitely. And if they do go the rookie quarterback route, then to me, and Dwayne and I talked about this last week, I think you have to keep McDaniels and Ziegler for another 2 or 3 years, because the worst thing you could do is draft a rookie quarterback, have struggle next year, and then move on from McDaniels after next year. So I think that's going to lock them in place here for probably 2 or 3 years.
I mean, when Mark Davis said that Josh is doing a fantastic job, I mean, I guess to me that means he's here for a while. I don't think that's going to change in the next 2 months. I mean, they're 2-7. It's been a terrible year, and to be that strong, to me, says he's in it for the long haul. And I think to me that would mean probably getting a different quarterback at some point. But you don't know. Again, we have 8 games to play, so you don't really know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I hope my boss says I'm doing a fantastic job if I was 2-7 as well. I might get a raise out of that. But where does that leave Josh Jacobs? Obviously, Zamir White's on this roster, Britton Brown. Do you see a scenario where Jacobs is back on this roster next year?
I really don't, because I think if you were going to do that, you should have given the extension. I think now it's going to cost you a lot more money. I mean, so whatever. I mean, sure, he's been better than they thought he was. He's been great this year. He's really run the ball very, very well. He's in great shape. But to me, I think it's probably more of a philosophy thing where they don't value running backs that highly. They don't want to pay a running back $6-7 million, and now it'll be a lot more than that if they bring him back. So I'm curious what the market will be, because it is tough for older running backs, not older, but veteran running backs on the market. But I don't see why they would bring him back now if they didn't do it before the season.
Yeah, and then I wanted to quickly touch on the offensive line. Was it this bad in camp? Did they see this every day and decided, hey, we're going to roll? To me, it didn't make sense. They knew that was an issue. They went out and they got Adams. They not wasted, but they used the first and second round pick on him, gave him a big contract, invested in Waller and Renfro, and this offensive line is terrible.
Yeah, we sat down with Dave Ziegler in Sarasota, and I asked him. I still have no idea what they're thinking about the O-line. I asked Dave, and he gave me an answer. I'm not really sure what he said, but basically they thought they had good enough guys in place. The guys in the market weren't the bang for the buck wasn't quite right. But to me, when you lose your Denzel Good, who's solid, and Brandon Parker, who they like, they re-signed him, you got to bring somebody else in. And then in camp, you kind of, I don't want to say waste, that's a little harsh, but you waste all these snaps on Lester Cotton and Leatherwood, and neither one of those guys is playing. Leatherwood's gone, Cotton's buried in the bench. So I still don't understand what they were doing. And Bars is off the streets, been okay, I guess. He's been better than people thought he was going to be. But you're right, still not very good in terms of pass protection. And I really don't know what they were thinking as far as you have all this talent on offense. Derek Carr, clearly, the book on him is he's a lot better with a good old line. I mean, he can do things regardless, but give him an offensive line he believes and has confidence in. He's definitely proven he's a lot better. So I don't know why he would gamble with the O-line.
Any idea what happened with John Simpson? They kind of gave him all the snaps as well in camp, and then he kind of just disappeared pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think it's one of those cases you always have new regimes come in and they look at what they have and they decide pretty quick if this guy's their guy or not their guy. And obviously Leatherwood was not their guy and John Simpson's not their guy. So, and Jonathan Abrams not their. So you kind of, some guys get moved on quicker than others, but you can tell by playing time or by where they're at just what the new regime thinks of him. So John Simpson didn't click with the I imagine the new O-line coach with so I just think he's probably on the way out next year.
You've seen every car snap. Like what is
that's pretty sad, man.
that's pretty crazy. If you think about it, you see it every car snap.
I have.
Yeah, we have too, but I'm not up close like you have. But what is his biggest regression you think this year? As far as like when you've seen the very top of car and you've seen the lows of lows car.
I think he's gotten better. I thought every year under John Gruden. I thought he was more aggressive. He was kind of working better with his feet. His footwork was better, getting out of the pocket, making plays. Kind of, I think now he's kind of a little more, I don't say timid, but definitely his feet are kind of happy now in the pocket a little more than they were last year. I think he's not looking to run. I think he doesn't trust the line too much. Now, as a result, I think of all of that, I think his accuracy is not as good as it normally is. I think his passes have not been on point as they have been in the past. So I think he definitely has regressed under McDaniels.
Yeah. The defense. That's a whole. Maybe the Raiders should never get a coordinator with the initials PG ever again. I guess I don't know, but I mean they've been pretty bad. And I like Patrick Graham. I'm originally from the East Coast, so I always keep an eye on the Giants, and they look like they look even better this year without him. But do you think it's more of they didn't put money on that side of the ball, or they just made colossal mistakes with the money they did spend with Bilal Nichols and Chandler Jones?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely spent money on Chandler Jones, and he's got he has half a sack in 9 games, so that they were counting on him big time. They thought with him and Max Crosby, that pressure would help the rest of the defense. And it would have. If they get pressure, those two guys get pressure on the quarterback, it makes linebackers' jobs easier, it makes the DB's jobs easier. But they're last in the league in sacks, so that's been a huge issue. Bilal Nichols has been, but they brought a lot of D tackles in who haven't really made an impact. So I think that's also. But they've been decent against the run. But I just think in terms of he has a scheme. I think ideally he wants to have very complex scheme like he had in the past. I'm sure he's dumbed it down this year a little bit because all the new guys. And I think he has to keep dumbing it down because obviously these guys aren't picking it up. He's probably not totally happy with the talent he has. I'm sure there's a lot of issues, but bottom line is they're bad and they're not getting any better. Like sometimes defenses get better as the year goes on. They click or something, there's some chemistry's formed, but they're not getting better. So I think that's alarming. And I think, again, it's a case where he'll probably say, I need my guys and I didn't have my guys.
Yeah, the one defensive player besides Max Crosby who I think has been playing pretty well is Rock Ya-Sin. You think he would be a guy who they might bring back?
Yeah, I think he's been good. I thought that was a really good trade as far as at that point they're kind of desperate. They brought in Chandler Jones, had to get rid of Ngakoue. She needed to find a taker, and I thought they found a good cornerback. I thought he'd have more of an impact than he has, but he's been solid. So I think you're right in terms of his defense. He's been one of the better players, but not an impact guy, but definitely I think a solid cover guy who maybe ideally is not number 2 in the corner, not number 1.
Before I get back to Ryan, how disappointing has it been to see Trevon Moehrig? Because it just seems like he's just not making any kind of impact or getting this defense at all.
Yeah, he definitely flashed more last year. I think it's probably growing pains with the system. I think he's asked to do more things. He's probably not strictly playing center field. So I think ideally you hope with his skill set, and he's a smart guy, definitely plays hard. You hope that he'll pick it up at some point. Maybe the next 8 games you'll see some flashes from the play he should be. But yeah, definitely the first 8 games, first 9 games, it's been a non-factor.
Yeah, why do you think Malcolm Kuntz isn't getting a lot of snaps, even in passer situations? Knowing they have no sacks, it's Max Crosby and Nate Hobbs, the only guys with sacks, other than the half sack from Jones and Farrell.
My theory is that they don't think he's strong enough. I think for their system and need a bigger guy. That's why you see Clee plays a little bit, and they've brought in Neil Farrell's playing more now. I think that they don't think Kuntz is strong enough to hold up. That's my guess. No one's saying that, but to me, that's a logical thing where you look at, again, I mentioned guys, new regime comes in, they look at the old regime's guys, and like, oh, that guy's good. That guy's not really our guy. So my gut feeling is that he's not really a fit for their scheme.
The linebacking core going into the season, as Raiders fans, we were all excited. We thought that they would have a nice nucleus of guys, and I think we're at a point now where we need to blow it up and need a whole new set of guys. I don't know if Perriman's going to come back. He's an older guy with an injury history. Masterson didn't play well. Jaylen Brown's been a disappointment. Blake Martinez is selling Pokemon cards. Do you think this is the year the Raiders actually take a linebacker in the first or second round? Like, they really need a difference maker at that position.
Yeah, I mean, but you always ideally you can find those guys, not in the first, second round. You can find a guy in third or fourth round or a veteran guy who can come in. Like last year, Denzel Perryman was great last year. I mean, he was Gus Bradley's guy. He knew the scheme very well. I think this year he's not reacting as fast. He's probably thinking too much because of the scheme. He's not the player he was last year. So another guy he's a free agent next offseason. I don't think he'll be back either. So I just think you got to find your guys, and whether that's high in the draft or middle of the draft or in free agency, but it shouldn't be too hard to find. Like Blake Martinez, a younger Blake Martinez would be a perfect fit for them, and he wasn't the high draft pick, I don't think. So you need to see someone who can plug in holes and know their assignments.
Definitely, this team needs to build to the draft and stop wasting money in free agency. I still think they're a couple of years away. They're competing with the Chiefs, and the Chargers have a bunch of talent, a young quarterback. Moving forward, do you think there's an opportunity for them to build this defense in an off season? Because that's what a lot of people that want to hold on to Carr do. I'm of the belief it's going to take him 2 or 3 years to rebuild the defense.
It's going to be tough because there aren't a lot of pieces in place right now. So you got to hit, and you see some teams around the league have hit like on 2 or 3 guys in this draft, and they plug them in. So it's possible to get 2 or 3 starters in a draft if you do it right, and you sign a couple other guys and you plug some. So I agree with you. It'll be hard to turn around, but again, I think with this, and it's been a case for a while with the Raiders, you don't need a top 10 defense. I mean, they've been so bad. If they just had like a top 20 defense the last 5-10 years, they'd be in much better shape because the offense can usually score some points, and all you need is a team that can get some turnovers and not be a total sieve. So the bar shouldn't be that high, but I agree with you. It'll be tough to kind of get it turned around quickly when you have so little to work with right now.
Definitely. And then, moving forward with this roster, what is the core of this roster when we look around? It's basically like it's really hard to find like 10 guys and say this is the core. It's an older team. What do you think the direction with this roster is going to be in the offseason? Do you see another mass overall? Because 32 guys on the roster right now, this regime brought in last year.
Right. Yeah, I was going to do something this week so it's 21 guys they inherited. I'm guessing less than half those guys are back next year. So again, I guess you have to. The big question will be, how the offense does the rest of the year. What you do with Derek Carr. Then, if there's enough good signs, maybe you try it again with Carr, Waller, Adams, Renfro, and maybe that can be what you thought they'd be this year because they've only had 62 snaps together this year. But if that hasn't happened, then you're looking at probably a more drastic steps to be taken. I think you probably go for a younger quarterback, and you probably build it up from scratch. And you'll have some star players in place, like you'll have Max Crosby, you'll have Devontae Adams, and Chandler Jones ain't going anywhere because he's making $26 million next year. So you'll have some guys who are back, and you just hope that you hope year 2 in the scheme, everyone's a lot better.
In your time covering the Raiders, can you think of a worse contract than Chandler Jones? Is it Anthony Hall, D'Angelo Hall? Is it Javon Walker?
So many.
Malik Collins.
Sean Smith. Sean Smith was a big one. And Sean Smith, I think, might be in jail still. But there's still Javon Walker. There's so many. I mean, who's a little
Wilson?
Lamarcus Jordan got a lot of money. He didn't make a play in 2 years. I mean, there's been a ton of them. That's been the problem. Despite whatever the regime is, not only do they draft poorly, but they don't sign well either. The Raiders, I mean, under Gruden, there were so many free agents who were terrible signing. Malik Collins only for 1 year, but he didn't make anything. And there's so many guys who got paid and didn't make any plays.
Antonio Brown, that was good.
Antonio Brown's a unique case. That's a unique case.
That's good.
Special kind of idiot.
Can you? There's no question about that. Can you think of a lower point as a coach? Like, I mean, he has so much he has so much experience as a head coach. Like, it had to kind of hurt him a lot to lose to Jeff Saturday this weekend. Like, I mean that had to was he a little bit? Was he more testy after that loss than any other one, or he just the same? Is this the same? Say Josh
I mean,
McDaniels.
I think he's done a good job of he's preaching trust the process, and he's been pretty even keeled all year. I mean, I'm sure it was tough, but man, I guess if you know the owner is that much behind you, it must lessen the sting a little bit. This weekend will be tough. This weekend, they're going to Denver. And I've been on the radio a couple times there talking to people, and man, they hate him in Denver. They hate Josh McDaniels in Denver. So that crowd's going to be fired up. So if they lose that one, and the crowd gets ugly, that could be a bad day for him because his 2 years there were not popular. So that'll be also tough for him if they lose that one and the crowd gets on him.
Looks like there's no snow coming there, so they might be okay. As far as the weather goes in that one. I listen to the podcast. Just one question: when did the singing start?
I have no idea, man. I really don't know. I don't know how that started. I think I must have been singing to myself at some point. Like I do randomly sing to myself, but I wish I knew how that started because it's gotten way out of control, and now I'm being forced to sing. I'm making promises, and I just whatever. Some people don't seem to enjoy it. I think it's absurd, but I'm a team player, so I will keep crewing them out. So if I have to.
I had one person who asked how I told you were coming on, and I don't know if you've ever seen any college football this year at all, but if there is a quarterback, like if Carr, they trade Carr or whatever, is there one of the quarterbacks in that draft that you would think would be a guy who would be like, okay, that'd be the perfect guy to kind of come in and
I mean, I don't know how the fit is just in terms of me watching them. I definitely like Hooker a lot. Hooker has a lot of the things I look for in a quarterback. He can throw, he can run. Very competitive. I like that. He's a tough guy. Doesn't back down from anybody. I think he's a leader. He's been around. I mean, scouts always, he's older because he's been, that's a negative. But to me, if you have experience, you've gone through some hard times, and you come out ahead and guys respond to you, to me, that's a plus. So I'm a big Hooker guy. I haven't really scouted him too closely, but just watching the games, kind of recreationally, I like his game a lot.
Okay, cool. Ryan, you got any last questions?
No, I would say the Hooker jersey in Vegas would probably sell pretty well. That would be
for sure. I wouldn't think that. That's a bonus. Yeah, it's a bonus. Yeah, but
no, I don't have any other questions. Just wanted to thank Vic for your time for coming on with The Athletic. We were both subscribers. We read your articles, you and Tayshawn, and as soon as I see it on my Twitter feed, I jump right on it, see what you guys have to say. So been following you for a long time. I've been a Raider fan my whole life. It's been a long time. I'm in my mid-40s. So hopefully they can win again. My kids look at me like I'm crazy. I have 2 teenagers. They haven't seen the Raiders win anything. So
I imagine this year was really tough. I mean,
it was hard.
You had some high hopes. I imagine. I mean, I wrote they were going to be a Super Bowl window. I wrote those were going to be in the playoffs this year. So I'm sure the bar was raised pretty high before the year started.
I think the highlight of the season for my kids is I'm a season ticket holder, and I was able to get Taylor Swift tickets yesterday. So that's the joy of their season, was that I got Taylor Swift tickets for them.
All right. Well, hopefully that money trickles down to Mark Davis and they can afford some more free agents next year. Be good.
Or new coach. All right. All right. Vic, thank you for joining us, man. I appreciate you, man. Take care.
All right, guys. Take care.
Good work, brother.
Thanks, Vic.
Appreciate you.